Bueller. Wambach got up, the header! Second goal for the U.S. Alex Morgan! After an amazing header from Emmy Wambach, it's 2-1.
What's going on, everybody? Happy Tuesday. It's Valentine's Day, Tuesday, February 14th. This is This Week in Women's Soccer. I'm your host, Jeff Kassouf. You might know me from equalizersoccer.com. You can check that out. And, of course, check out North American Soccer Network, which this show is on that you're watching right now. So lots of big news to get to, as you know. A lot going on in the women's soccer world. And it's sort of all over the map, to be honest, both figuratively and literally. I mean, there's stuff going on everywhere. It's all kind of piecemeal. I mean, there's nothing really connected or unified. I know that that's certainly a talking point, but WPS obviously not to be in 2012, but there's a lot of movement. WPSL, which for those of you who don't know, that's the Women's Premier Soccer League, which is an amateur league, has started what they are calling an elite league, essentially sort of a in-between stage of amateur and pro. It's a semi-pro league. It's a pro-am. And they have managed to bring in the Western New York Flash and Boston Breakers. Probably more watered-down version of those teams than they would be in WPS, or definitely more watered-down. But, I know Boston has at least a couple of signings announced. Kat Whitehill is one of them. I mean, that's a pretty good signing, I'd say, for being second division, essentially, and literally second division. So we'll see how those rosters kind of develop. And then the big news that just came through Tuesday night out of the Pacific Northwest, Hope Solo returning to home, as they would say, and Sydney Leroux back to Sydney Leroux is a whole different story. Being a former Whitecap, I'm sure that the folks in Vancouver are even less thrilled with her now. First, she went from Canada to the U.S., and now she's going from being a Whitecap to a Sounder. So I don't know. She might be getting some hate mail from north of the border. But Hope Solo, Sydney Leroux, signed on board with the USLW League, Seattle Sounders women. Very big news, pretty shocking news, to be honest. We'll touch on that in a bit as well. And then, of course, over the weekend, we had New Zealand taking on the United States. The U.S. pulls out a 2-1 victory in the final minutes, thanks to 2 goals from Alex Morgan. And she had herself quite a week, I would say. She appeared on not only in the Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue, but her thumbnail actually made the cover. And about as big of exposure as we've seen in quite a while for women's soccer, at least in mainstream media like that. I mean, obviously Hope Solo, Dancing with the Stars. There's been some things out there, but the readership of the Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue, which whether you agree with it or not, the readership is huge. It's astronomical, really, for a once annual publication, and it's pretty big exposure. Is it going to translate to women's soccer fans? I don't know. I mean, most likely not, but I think it'll certainly sort of put her name out there more, and by way of that, put women's soccer out there a little bit more. And maybe it's only a couple hundred, maybe a couple thousand that convert, but maybe you pick up a few fans. So we'll get into that as well. I think the place to start here is the WPSL Elite League, which has really made some waves in sort of picking up the Flash and the Breakers, and then beyond that, another former WPS team, the Chicago Red Stars. FC Indiana's joined the fray, which is a team that's always been pretty highly respected. And then most recently on Tuesday announced that the Chesapeake Charge and the Boston Aztec will be part of the league. Word coming through also in talking to some people that a team out of New Jersey will likely be a part of that. I've talked to Sky Blue in the past, and they have no intention of playing this year in the W League or WPSL. So I guess we can get that thought out of the system right there. Probably just a WPSL team moving up. I mean, I put it out there on Twitter that it could be Atlantic City just because of sort of some connections that they have. They have some sort of WPS ties in the front office there. And I know that Atlantic City's always been sort of one of the teams with some higher hopes, I would say, than just WPSL. So we'll see who comes out of that. And then the Maryland Capitals have put a bid in. They need to be accepted. We'll see if they are. But, the WPSL Elite League, it looks, sounds, feels a lot like WPS with less money going into it. I mean, you're looking at $200,000 and $300,000 budgets, according to Jerry Zanelli, who's the commissioner of WPSL. It's certainly a reduced budget, and it certainly means that a lot of players won't be getting paid much. And his thing has always been, these players have lives outside of this. They have career aspirations outside of this, so let them explore them while they're being a pro player and while they're working their 9 to 5 and then they're training at night. That obviously raises a lot of issues with some people. I mean, I've spoken with some people just in the past few days that just don't buy into that is not a professional setting. I know a lot of players feel that way, so there could be some trouble getting some real talent, some WPS talent over to this league when they look at things and they say, this really isn't professional to me. And at the same time, I've heard people say, talking to them about this, that they've heard that exact sentiment from players and they think it's a bit of rubbish, to be honest, because the bottom line is that, to them at least, that things are pretty much just as professional here in WPSL, in something such as an elite league, as they would be when you go over to maybe some of the European leagues where you're sort of paying your own way on some things, and you're getting housing, but you're not necessarily getting a whole lot. So, really a lot unknown about this league beyond those 6 teams. We don't have a schedule. We've got some details, but really not a whole lot. So that is sort of option number 1 domestically. Option number 2 is obviously the W League and the huge announcements. Hope Solo on her way back to Washington State. She's a huge Sounders fan, went to school, Washington, makes no real secret about it. Still, though, surprising that she and Sydney Leroux really signed with the Seattle Sounders, because in an Olympic year with no WPS and USSF almost openly talking about perhaps exploring a residency camp, that these players are signed with a W League team. It's interesting, and I wonder, and I think we may just see some more of this as time kind of progresses here and players sort of settle in. It gives them the opportunity. I mean, really, if they're training hard and they're training a lot with the U.S. Women's National Team, it allows them to get games and maybe get some extra training in. But it's really not like a WPS situation where it's literally full-time, where it's literally 1-2 games a week, and they're really kind of pounding the body. I mean, W League is a short season. It's a quick turnaround. And when you're a star, I mean, and that's what, that's definitely what Hope Solo is. And in W League terms, that's definitely what Sydney Leroux is. When you're a star in the W League, you can kind of dictate your own terms. I mean, if you need a week off, you're getting a week off. If you need 2 weeks off, you're getting it. There's really no, it's really sort of, the power is in the hands of those players, because W League teams are just happy to have them, even if it's only here and there. So don't know the terms of these contracts. I mean, if Seattle still plans on playing college players, obviously they can't pay Sydney Leroux or Hope Solo. We'll see how they get around that. Maybe they do go with fully paid players. I mean, who knows? So we'll have to sort of keep an eye on that. I mean, it could be something where all of a sudden, those two have some sort of meaningless front office job with the Seattle Sounders men, and they're getting a little bit on the side, and that's sort of making up for things. We'll see. But regardless of that, it's huge for marketing, because all you need is Hope Solo to turn up for a couple of games. And, if you're still playing at Starfire, I haven't quite caught where or what the plans are, maybe if this even changes plans. But if you're still playing at Starfire, there's no reason you shouldn't sell the place out. I mean, Hope Solo with the hometown connection, and just the absolute star power of what she's done in the past 8 months. should definitely bring some people to Starfire or wherever they play in Seattle. So big news for the Sounders women. And this goes way beyond that. We could dive into some different things with the W League, but essentially W League, that's option 2 for players, WPS players in search of something. Option 3 is really the interesting one to me, and this all excludes going abroad, obviously, which is a huge option that people are taking advantage of. The freelance soccer player of sorts is really interesting. I talked with Paul Riley last night, or Monday night, who obviously coached the Philadelphia Independents to 2 straight finals, and he doesn't totally buy into this WPSL Elite League. He thinks that's not quite the training environment the players need. They don't need 3 nights a week as if it's youth club ball. They need sort of a full-time training environment. So he's put together this package called the Women's Professional Super Group, and it's open to the first 28 players who respond. He's invited apparently a whole host of WPS players, and it's basically come in for a week every month, about 7 or 8 days out of every 30, and you train. You just train 2 days plus games mixed in throughout the week, and it's top talent, it's top coaching staff. It's basically the Philadelphia Independence coaching staff, and it's an opportunity for them to get 7-8 hard days, which might equate to about 15 training sessions from what's the information that we have, and play games on the weekends, maybe play each other in sort of an inter-squad scrimmage. So that on top of the fact that the LA Vikings are still looking hard into this sort of, I guess I don't know what you'd call it, sort of a travel team of sorts, player for hire team. They're looking into, obviously they have a WPSL team, but they're also looking to bring in the pros and have the LA Viking Cup in October, where they're inviting a bunch of teams. They've invited some really good teams. Canada is coming, from what I'm told. And then the invites are out to Sweden, Denmark, New Zealand, Norway, and then the big one, USSF did confirm what Robert Kleinberger, the LA Vikings owner, told me, that Pearson Haga and the U.S. got the invite. See if they take it. I don't know. At that point, you're post-Olympics. They might be on a celebration tour if they win, so we'll see. But that's sort of option 3, is the freelance soccer player, just kind of, maybe they're training with Paul Riley one week, and the next week they're in LA playing Canada on some sort of all-star team with the Vikings. So there's a lot out there. I think that it's tough because you'd really like to see these things sort of come together and get on the same page and sort of find a solution for women's soccer. At the same time, I think there's something to be said for letting the cream rise, letting the best league succeed. You have WPSL Elite League, you have the W League, who still plans to launch some sort of pro division in 2013. And then you have WPS, who thinks or plans to come back in 2013. So there's 3 options that will be direct competitors in this country in 2013 if they all come to be. If they all come to be is a huge sort of asterisk to that situation. But, the W League, WPSL, WPS, these players are all making decisions based on their personal feelings, based on what they think is best for them, based on maybe what they see as more of a future, and more of a present, really, because a lot of them have been put into hard positions with WPS suspending play so late in this process. But it's clear that a lot of them are going very different directions. So which of these leagues succeeds? I don't think all 3 can coexist, certainly not successfully or in any type of long term. So we'll see what happens. Shifting gears real quickly to probably the bigger news of the weekend until this Hope Solo and Sydney LaRue signing. USA beats New Zealand 2-1, 2 very late goals in the final minutes, one in pretty late in stoppage time from Alex Morgan, both on headers, which is not necessarily her forte, but very well done. And New Zealand, I know New Zealand feels robbed. I think that a little bit justifiably so. I mean, after a long look at that first goal that Alex Morgan scored, where it was very questionable if it went over the line. I mean, I do think that it went over the line. I just don't think it's as obvious as a lot of people have sort of argued, particularly with me about. But I did talk to someone today, actually, who was down there filming the game and actually happened to be filming at that goal next to the goalpost and did say that it went over the line. So I'm going to trust he had the best vantage point in the stadium. And probably even better than the AR, because I don't know if the AR was actually on the goal line. But I mean, really, the couple stories of this game, New Zealand looked very good. Ali Riley really held things together. Really the best player on the pitch for New Zealand in particular. I'd hesitate to say the best player on the pitch overall, because I think Alex Morgan put together one heck of a performance over 90 minutes, not just those sort of signature late game minutes that she's known for. She scored the 2 goals there, but you could tell from the start. I mean, she drew the PK just a few minutes into the game, which Abby Wambach struck off the post. She was active all game. I mean, she had a couple different breakaway chances, and I think the first time ever really in a senior national team kit that we've seen her put together a true full 90-minute performance that really sort of lit your eyes up. And if that's the Alex Morgan to come, she's only 22. So that could be a very good sign for the United States over the next 15 years. I mean, I don't want to push it, but I guess it's 1 month at a time at this point, 1 day at a time, with the Olympics coming up. But I think that we really saw the Alex Morgan that can be, that could be, that really should be on Saturday against New Zealand. So, if we're sitting here in August and the U.S. is lifting gold and Alex Morgan's had a couple of goals in that tournament, that game, and even further down the line, I think you can really look to this New Zealand game and say, she's done some things in spurts. She's done some things off the bench. She's been the super sub hero in the final 10 minutes. But that New Zealand game in Frisco, in front of over 20,000 people, a sold-out crowd, I should add, big credit to Dallas and Frisco. That game is really the game that you look at and say, that's when it really started to turn for her. And I think a lot of that has to do with Pia Sundhage calling her out a bit in Vancouver and saying she's not a 90-minute player. I mean, you could tell, especially in that Guatemala game when Sunil Rue comes in and Alex Morgan's still sitting on the bench, and you can tell they flashed the camera over to the bench. She wasn't happy, and who would be? Sitting on the bench and your colleague who's even younger than you is going in there, and then she happens to score 5 goals. So it doesn't exactly bode well for you getting more playing time. But Alex Morgan, I think, has responded very well to what Pia Sundhage has put out there for her. She's combining incredibly with Abby Wambach, and it's really looking good. I like Kelly O'Hara still, despite the mistake that led to the New Zealand goal. It's just an awful back pass. But again, she's been playing left back for about 3 games now. So we'll give her the benefit of the doubt. I think it's live and learn. She didn't do it in a gold medal game. So to me, the big thing with that is just hopefully it doesn't shake her confidence. Things like that can really get in your head when you're sort of adjusting positions and learning a new position. And, hopefully that's behind her now because I think she could be a very good left back. She could learn a couple things from her very good friend, Ali Riley, who did very well. New Zealand looked good. This could be very easily an Olympic matchup again, just like it was 4 years ago. So, I think that, like we said during the World Cup last year, the gap has really closed. Whereas previously a team like New Zealand might have the U.S. might wipe the floor with them a bit. New Zealand is looking very good. They ended the World Cup pretty strong. They've been able to do some things over the past year or so, and I think they look very good. So we'll look for them assuming they're qualifying. I mean, I don't even know why Oceania needs to hold a qualifying event because New Zealand just runs through them. I think they won, was it 67-0, I believe, aggregate, something around there, 62 maybe, in Women's World Cup qualifying. I mean, it was just a joke. So look for New Zealand. If not, then I think you've got the biggest upset in women's soccer history there if they don't make the Olympics. But, the U.S., there's still some things to address. I mean, the back line is definitely an issue. You don't have any issues up, knock on wood, you don't have any issues up front. The midfield, it's not set per se, but you have so many options, it's really not a worry. I mean, you have so many players you can rotate in there. It's really that back line. What are you going to do with it? I'd like to see Kelly O'Hara wide left. Obviously it looks like, Rampone's a given at center back. I think the other one, it looks like Rachel Bueller might stay there. I mean, it could be Becky Sauerbrunn, slide Rachel Bueller right. I would prefer that over what we saw on Saturday with Bueller playing central and Amy Lepelbeck going wide right. She's just not a wide or a wide back. I mean, it's really what it comes down to. I know that Pia loves to push this, and Amy Lepelbeck's a great defender, but she's a great center back. I mean, she's just not a wide back. There's just certain sort of traits that you can't attack with her. I mean, it's really not to harp on the negative here. It's just not her strength. She's a center back, and that's where she needs to be. And if it happens to mean she's not in the starting 11, then you got a solid option off the bench. I mean, really, you have a chance to rest some legs if you need to for some reason, or if somebody gets hurt. I mean, Ali Krieger got hurt. Anything can happen. So I'd really rather see a natural right back or someone who can sort of fit that skill set more worked into that position, but I don't think it's going to happen. So 2-1 win for the U.S. over New Zealand, and Algarve Cup coming up where they will play Japan, the United States will, and as we also learned last week, they will head to Japan in April to take on the defending world champions who happen to beat them in the final, the Japanese, and the Brazilians will be there as well for a 3-team tournament called the Kirin Challenge. That's going to be a nice one, and you'll actually get to see that one. ESPN2 picking up the Japan game on April 1st, and then April 3rd, Brazil-US will be on ESPN3.com. So a very good way to assess things. I think the Americans, I mean, it's unfortunate it won't be the first crack at Japan because I'd really like us to see that, and it's not going to be on any type of TV or streaming or anything at the Algarve Cup, but still, second time around, U.S. will still have some bitter taste in their mouth for Japan, so I think that should be very interesting. And then likewise, Brazil will remember very well, not only this past summer, but just about every time they've played the U.S. I mean, Brazil is really, they've got that monkey on the back, and it's red, white, and blue. So Brazil will be ready to go, and I'm sure that they'll be looking to do some things, come Olympic time. And I guess the monkey's not quite on the back in the Olympics, but certainly in the World Cup, which doesn't sit well with them. So only other thing, in this past week with women's soccer, and maybe for some of you this is the biggest thing. I mean, Alex Morgan, Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue. She did it in body paint as opposed to, I guess, your normal beach attire. So, it's good exposure for women's soccer, as I said at the start here. I really think that it's sort of the start of something, or maybe it's not the start of something, because we've really been seeing this since the Women's World Cup, but I think it's really something that you can point to and say, hey, this really is a situation where this player in particular, and to an extent the women's national team, has really penetrated the mainstream media. I mean, her name's been out there I think there's several factors that you can really point to, this being the most visible. I mean, it's very high visibility. You've got you've got the unveiling of the cover in Times Square on David Letterman. And, by the way, she actually happens to be on the cover. I'm not saying I am huge on that sort of marketing of women's soccer. I'm not saying I'm not. I'm really sort of neutral on the issue. I do think that it does. I think that it brings some real attention to the sport. The hope is that it's beyond temporary. That's really the key. If it's just temporary, then, I don't know. But again, beyond this, and I think some of you have pointed to that on equalizersoccer.com in the comments section. It's her own personal decision. She decided to do it. All the power to her. She talked to her family. I think that was good. That's cool. It's certainly sort of something that's family decision. And that, it is what it is. So all the power to her. And hopefully it is something that sort of brings on more media attention to what's going on the field. And, I guess at the very least, you can say something like this, something like Hope Solo on Dancing with the Stars. These are things that sort of put the name out there, because I think a lot of people know who Hope Solo and Alex Morgan and Abby Wambach and a lot of these other players, Megan Rapinoe, are. But having them on sort of these mainstream, these sort of average Joe TV shows, magazines, really at least, maybe it goes from who the heck is that for the average person to at least, oh yeah, the soccer player plays on the national team, she's the goalie, she's the one who's scoring this goal. It definitely increases awareness. We'll see how much, we'll see how long lasting it is. That's all I really have to say about that. Feel free to chime in the comments. Feel free to send us an email this week at nasn.tv. We'd love to hear from you. We'll certainly keep you posted on some guests. We had a little bit of audio trouble last week, so I'm still going to keep you hanging on the guest. We were very excited about it. We had a heck of a chat, and it just turned out that the cell phone gave us some issues. So we'll keep you posted on stuff. And certainly check back to this space. You can follow me on Twitter at Jeff Kassouf. You can follow at NASN TV and ASN.TV. No dot in the Twitter handle, but just keep checking back. We'll definitely be getting some more guests on here, and feel free to let us know who you want to hear from for sure, because there's a lot going on. So until next time, when hopefully I'll be joined by somebody, we will keep you in the loop on that. I am Jeff Kassouf, your host of This Week in Women's Soccer. Thanks for joining us. Hope you liked what you heard, and we'll catch you later.